You are listening to Girls, Ghosts, Ghouls, a podcast where three women discuss horror movies from the silent era through the 1970s. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, and Anchor. Timely, topical, terrifying.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Girls, Ghosts, Ghouls. I'm Betsy.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Jenny.
And this month we are doing a movie that Cinefantastique described as the Citizen Kane of horror movies, that 1973 classic, The Wicker Man. So if you haven't seen The Wicker Man, why haven't you seen The Wicker Man? Everyone should have seen The Wicker Man. If you haven't seen the original Wicker Man, you've probably seen the horrible Nicolas Cage remake from the 2000s, which I would not recommend in any way, shape, or form, except for the bees.
I was still going to give it a shot just because.
Honestly, Rebecca, since you watched the original, I would say do it just so you can compare and contrast because it's fun.
I think that's a valid
The compare and
approach.
contrast is fun, I should say, but the movies.
The compare and contrast is fun.
If only so I can understand the not the bees memes.
It's something else.
I'll check it out.
Out of it, like if you come out of this one being like, that's not paganism, you come out of that one going, oh my God, I prefer the paganism in the first one.
They actually made a bad movie
is
worse.
A little closer.
Yeah, the paganism in the first one at least didn't make it so that it was like a man-hating woman cult.
Yeah.
Oh, that right.
Yeah. So we are talking about the 1973 movie starring Edward Woodard, Britt Eklund, kinda, Christopher Lee.
Yay! In a role that he really looked like he was having fun with.
Oh my God, that's one of the fun parts about watching is just watching how much fun Christopher Lee's having. He's just,
and he doesn't even come in until later in the movie.
No, but he has a blast.
In the last movie, I complained because they didn't let him swan enough. This movie understands who he is and let him swan all over the place. He swanned and snarked his way through this film. It is perfect.
His performance was delightful.
It is perfect.
Stand out from a really shitty movie.
Yes, and he considers this his best film.
Yes, he does.
Which
he also was not paid for this film.
Adore. Yeah, he was not paid for this film, nor was he paid to do any of the
no promotion, no production.
No, he ended up in like Iowa on his own dime promoting this film.
He would call film critics and be like, look, I bought you a ticket. Please go see the movie and review it.
Yeah.
Insanity. Pure insanity.
But
I think my cat is voting in on this movie. She keeps biting my toes.
She's like, don't even talk about it. It sucks that bad. I'm going to warn you people. I don't think this is a horror movie. I mean, I know it's supposed to be. The only thing horrifying about it
in the last
it's
5 minutes.
To me, it should be. You're right. Technically, that's supposed to be. Technically, the whole thing is supposed to be a horror movie, and it has horror elements. I think it's funny as fuck. Like, not in a good way, funny as fuck, but like the only entertainment I get out of is just how funny it is to me that like this happened. I find so many things giggly in it that probably are not remotely meant to be funny, but it is. Like him, the way he dies at the end. Spoiler alert! Of course, you know this is all spoilers. Has me rolling on the ground every time. It's just, I mean, there are shit in it that's supposed to be funny, but I mean, there's a lot that's not supposed to be that I would just laugh at.
I think back to the first time that I ever watched it, and would I have thought that some of this stuff was creepy? Yes, absolutely. Not all of the stuff that they think is creepy would I have thought was creepy. Because they're like, look, people are having sex, and I'm like, that's not creepy. But
oh my God, that's supposed to be creepy too in the 70s. But
yeah.
But so context wise, so this movie was made in 73, released in 75. So it's actually older than I am, and I think the first time I saw it, I was maybe 8 or 9 on cable TV, and admittedly, I was super young. So all I really got out of it was like at the time scary masks. It might be scary, creepy masks. They were creepy
That's
masks.
justifiable. They are creepy masks.
A lot
They're
of titties,
very
which
creepy
was not
masks.
creepy to me, but just there's a lot of tits that for some reason women run around naked when they're pagans, apparently. I mean, some do, and that's cool, but it's strange to me that was only the women running around naked. Weird. And at the time I was being raised Catholic, so I didn't get as annoyed by the main character Edward Woodward plays, until I watched it when I was in my teens. I was annoyed with him because he was obviously an arrogant prick, but like, I also did feel a little bad for him when I was younger, because I was like, oh, all he's trying to do is save this little girl, and then they killed him for it. And now I'm like, no, he was doing a lot more than that. I mean, like, once I was no longer 8 years old, I understood a lot of the subtext that's blaringly obvious, but not to an 8-year-old. You know what I mean? Well, not to the 8-year-old I should say. But I was in my early introduction to paganism at 8, so I understood what was going on around there. I didn't quite understand how persecuting he was about it, because I just wasn't picking up on it, which is stupid, because when you watch it, it's really fucking hard to miss. But 8, forgive me.
You're 8 as a child, you're not really picking up on that much.
No. But yeah, in my teens and later watching, oh my God, I just never can wait for him to die. I get so excited at the thought that he is actually going to die. And then also the other subtext I would miss at 8 is how he was just abusing power left and right, and just expecting that because he was a cop that he could do whatever the fuck he wanted, and he was. And this is not a new theme, obviously. It's not a dead theme anymore either. I mean, it's never been a dead theme. It's consistent with our history, but this is England, so I guess it's been bad there too.
Well, technically, the movie is set in the Hebridean Isles, which would be Scotland. So certainly England did rule Scotland that way.
Yeah.
They certainly came in and were like, I have all the power and you have nothing. So that actually does play pretty well to what it was like in Scotland, I guess. Not being a Scottish person, I can only guess by the history that I've heard. So it's technically supposed to be in a Hebridean Isle, although there is no Hebridean Isle called Summer Isle. It was made up.
There's a collection of islands called the Summer Isles, but none of them they're uninhabited. There are occasional, like you'll have like fishing huts and whatnot, but the largest one of them, I think the last permanent like resident jetted out of there like 2013, 2016 thereabouts.
But the Summer Isle, the movie, never existed, and Lord Summer Isle never existed. And it's funny because we were talking earlier, there's that lovely acknowledgement at the opening credits thanking the people and the Lord of Summer Isle for
their like it was
contributions
it's
to
an
the
early
film.
Blair
And
Witch.
Yeah, it's really funny. Like they've tried to add legitimacy to it. Like it's.
And if you think back in the 70s, in the early 70s, is somebody necessarily going to know that?
It's certainly not your American audience.
They're going to have to go to an encyclopedia and look it up.
Exactly. And like I said, definitely not your American audience. I mean, your UK audience might have known the truth of that, but us watching it, be like, oh, there's a Summer Isle and a Lord Summer Isle, and these people on this island actually behave this way.
Is this real? No.
But if you haven't watched it, just to go through the plot kind of basically. So Police Sergeant Neil Howie, his name is Neil. They never call him Neil. His name is Police Sergeant Howie. What I found out is that his name was in a deleted scene where you saw the envelope that the picture came in of Rowan. I'm like, so he's just Sergeant Howie. Thank you. So Sergeant Howie is coming in by seaplane to this little island to look into the disappearance of a young girl because he was sent a letter saying that she went missing. Mm-hmm. Him directly. He was sent a letter.
Which my question is, how would they know to send it to him?
That also is a very interesting mystery.
Which I don't think they really go into. Maybe it was covered in some deleted material, but it's one of those things.
A ritual, Rebecca.
It's one of those things you gotta handle.
It involved naked women and naked women only because the men had clothes on. So
it involved the ritual of boobies, right? I don't remember reading about that one when I was in college.
I'm making shit up.
Yeah.
And you have to lick a toad and
Kitty rituals.
I mean, they really did do like a combination of what was actual paganism. No, we don't know what actual paganism looked like. We don't have any records of that. So they did a combination of what was in the Golden Bough, a combination of just old folk remedies, and what was like modern celebrations of ancient holidays.
Festivals.
Yeah. And took them and just threw them together and went meh, to make a religion.
They were making stew. They were making pagan stew.
It was very much Victorian.
See how it
Which
works.
is why you have all the different variations. You'll have your your Dianic folk who, okay, we're going to leave this portion out and we're going to focus on this. And then you'll have, the more traditional Gardnerians and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Stew can be very many flavors.
Oh, absolutely. So he ends up on this island and he is a devout Christian. They make sure to let you know that he is a devout Christian every time the man speaks.
He's an extremely
he's a police officer every time he
yes,
speaks.
he's
Devout
extremely
Christian
insufferable.
and a police officer. He's a police officer who's a devout Christian, and don't forget either of these things. So he ends up on this island, and what you realize pretty quickly is that this island is in fact not devoutly Christian. They show you this by showing people copulating in fields and people humping the landlord's daughter.
Or somebody naked crying on a gravestone at night.
Yeah,
I'm still trying to figure out where that one came from.
Especially because the way she was straddling the burial mound. I mean, it was just...
Yeah, because I don't remember in any of the books that I read, any of the rituals I went to, nothing. I'm like, I don't know where that came from.
That one at all, but whatever. I'm not the end all and be all of
that might be one of those, hey, this will look good on film, throw it in.
We need but one more naked woman. Let's do it.
Put more movies in the film. Yeah,
as many naked women as we can possibly fit into what ended up being, I think, 60 minutes.
And it was just mostly titties, just titties everywhere. They just,
everywhere, so many of them. But
I mean, I don't know if I'm happy or sad, but not one naked man.
No,
I think you might get possibly a flash of ass when the swordsman do a big spin and the kilt flies.
Also, there's like flashes of butt when they are literally having sex in the weeds. There's
but that was mostly women's butt, so I don't think you saw man butt.
No, there was one man butt.
Okay, because it looked like they were all women riding, but I might have missed it. You're right.
No, I think there's one.
From the looks of the men in the film, for the most part, I'm pretty glad that they did not have, naked men.
I read that a lot of the people were just kind of on site at whatever the places were that they were filming. So
it was around Scotland.
A lot of that, yeah. They hired some people, but most people were on site hires, like on site, like, hey, do you want to be in a movie? Here you go.
We need extras. Show up.
Yep. So Howie comes to the island looking for Rowan Morrison. This is who he was told was missing. She's a little girl. She's 12. So he goes to the island. He ends up staying at the Green Man Inn, where he meets the really, really skeezy innkeeper and his very, very hot daughter. His hot daughter is played by Britt Eklund, but her body is played by someone else because she was quite pregnant, apparently. And she didn't want her butt shown.
She was quite pregnant, but she was pregnant, because you do see parts of her body. Anything waistline up, that is Britt Eklund.
That is
anything
her.
That is more than that, that is somebody else. So, I mean, waistline up, she's not showing a pregnancy moment you can see. So I'm guessing she was early stages, but just showed enough where she wasn't comfortable.
Yeah, she wasn't comfortable. She didn't want her butt on screen. And so they just hired a butt or
a body double.
About 17 different rumors. Like 3 women said that they were the butt. And then one guy was like, no, I hired like a prostitute to be her butt. They don't know who the real butt was.
Yes, and Britt Eklund refuses to sign naked pictures from that movie because she tells people it's not her.
Because it's not her.
There you go.
Because
fair.
I think that's funny.
Yeah, it's fair. I get all the older gets it. She also was dating Rod Stewart at the time, who protested the movie
that's right.
being released.
Because he tried to
stop it being released.
Yeah,
because he didn't want the naked scenes. I'm like, you're dating a Swede.
Right.
And I love things about, I mean, this is stereotyping, I apologize, but almost what you hear about most Swedish cultures, they're very body positive and they're not very,
Oh,
they have no
absolutely.
body
Yeah.
shame, which is awesome. I think
Yeah.
that is a wonderful way to live your life. So, but
Absolutely.
apparently Rod Stewart was having issues with it.
Well,
Yeah, well, possessive male, there you go.
Yep. But so he's staying at the inn. They attempt to seduce him. It does not work. He starts to realize that there are photos of the annual harvest each year, and there's a photo missing. And in each photo, there's a young girl as the May Queen. And there's one missing, and the landlord says, oh, it's broken. We don't know what happened to it. And he said, oh, that's a shame. And so he starts asking around, and literally everyone he talks to pretends like Rowan never existed. It's very
Including her
gaslighting
mom and
and
sister.
very funny.
Yeah.
They're like, no, even her mother is like, there is no Rowan. I do.
This is my only daughter here.
Yes, but doesn't.
Yeah.
To do
Yeah.
that.
And then until he starts to find vague clues.
Vague clues.
uh,
The biggest thing is he goes to the school and he accosts the teacher, basically.
Oh, yeah,
Can we
because
stop here a
she's
moment? Oh,
go
so
for it.
I was just, we
gonna
really have
say-
to dissect the school scene because when he
Oh,
comes
yeah,
up,
that's kind of start what I was
there's the
starting to go
maypole.
in through.
There's the
the
maypole.
which is only
But-
surrounded by boys and men.
Boys. So, and every maypole that that I've been around, that I've danced around, has been co-ed.
It's supposed
Because
to be
that's the
kind
whole point.
yeah, it's supposed to be kind of like a little mating dance, sort of, is one of its aspects of it. And
The only thing that I can think of that they did is they did like basically like combined maypole dancing with Morris dancing, which Morris dancing was traditionally done by men.
Yeah.
Just to make this for this particular film. Because they wanted to make it like it represents the penis.
well, which technically that is one of the teachings about the maypole is that
Well,
it is
which
not. So they weren't
does.
wrong about that,
Yeah.
but
They were
Right, but I mean they
incomplete.
are really hammering home that it's a penis.
Get the word penis. But here's the other thing. So a lot of the songs in it, which I've never been a lover of this type of folk music, just to be honest, so they grate on my nerves, are actually based in traditional folk songs. But the guy that male teacher's singing around when he's instructing about the maypole, it like the line in it that really bothers me. And it's like, there was a man laying on a girl who sent a seed, who gave birth to a boy. And I find it interesting that it's a man with a girl and not a man with a woman. And it bugs the shit out. I'm just going to say that right there. Like, I think if you're going to make a distinction between man and boy, you should probably have made a distinction between girl and woman. And if you didn't, then you're a pedophile.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's part of the
in my
70s
head I was
misogynism.
going my head was going to you mean there's a hole in the bottom of the sea for pagans? It's like
The hole in the well and the well in the butt. Yeah,
I was
there's
like,
a dog and a log and a rog and a hole in the
I was
bottom of
like,
the sea.
mine was like, oh, they're doing the Rattling Bog.
Yes, it's that kind of song, only
It
for
is.
pagans. But yeah, I had never noticed that. I'm gonna have to watch that. Do you know what? Now that I'm singing it in my head, you're absolutely right. They do that. It never hit me before. But yeah, that's creepy. And on that man, and on that girl, there was a man, and on that man, there was a seed. Oh.
Yeah.
It's very cringy. But yeah, I do love the way that the female teacher is like, yes, a phallic symbol, a penis.
Penis. She's very,
Goodness.
very emphatic about this.
And you just
Because the
see
girls are like,
Officer
it's a phallic
Howie.
symbol. And she's like, yes,
Officer Howie's
it's a
losing
symbol
his
for
shit.
penis.
Like his face when the word
He is
penis
just-
comes out.
Honestly,
It's
half of
beautiful.
the stuff that they say, I swear, is just to get a rise out of him.
I
Because-
believe that's the case. Like, because if you
You may
think
not
about
be
it,
wrong.
the whole time they're leading this guy on, he is so
Yeah.
stupid. And like,
He's
maybe
so-
it's not obvious at first, but I mean, like the whole hobby horse chase, the dude literally stops and waits for him to catch up before he keeps leading into the woods. Or the whisper scene at the end, like, he's sleeping now, but they're yelling basically.
Yeah, they're whisper yelling.
Although apparently the original cut of the film with the Hand of Glory, they said there's a lost scene that everyone remembers but has never been found. in the footage where he had a big dream sequence where he saw an egg and it got crushed and something else. And there was like this big trippy dream sequence. And then when he looked over, the hand of glory had gone out and he wakes up.
This might just be suggestion or Mandela effect, but now that you're mentioning that, I kind of remember when I was watching it as a child, there was a nightmare scene. And it was something along that line. But
apparently it has been lost. So, but I read somewhere that at some point the original negatives for this got put into a bin with stuff that was getting thrown away.
Can't
and they
imagine
never
why.
found it. And so it went away. So what they have is just what they have.
Wow. Yeah, I think I remember reading that as well.
Yeah. But yeah, so also the school scene is also another one of his I am a police officer scenes. And he like harangues the teacher about how that he's going to turn her in for basically corrupting youth
and justice and being a pig and
just
like,
awful.
Okay.
My whole thing looking at the class of what is supposed to be schoolgirls, these girls do not look like 9 or 12. They look a little bit more like 25 in
I read one of the things that I read was the girls were supposed to be 12. Most of them are older, and the one who was playing Daisy was 21. So
which one was Daisy? Was she the
one with the
beetle?
Yeah,
the beetle.
Yeah, he opens the desk and he finds like a little beetle tied to a
No, I did agree with him about the beetle.
Around.
It was cruel.
It was cruel.
I agree with him there.
That was a creepy little girl who looked like she would be played by somebody on SNL.
She made me think about Moaning Myrtle.
Yes, I didn't even think about that.
Bit.
Yeah, it's the pigtails.
Yeah,
and the dark hair. This is probably in English, you know.
Yep.
Or Scottish. I'm sorry. I know there's a difference. I apologize.
That's fighting words.
So he harangues the teacher and makes her give him his books, and then he sees that Rowan Morrison was enrolled in classes and she's been crossed out. And he's like, what happened to Rowan Morrison? And she says, well, she died, or she lays in the graveyard. And he's like, in the churchyard. And she's like, nope. So that's when he finds out that the church is no longer active, and he's real upset about it. And he finds the grave of Rowan, and he wants to dig it up.
So, but this was the first definitive proof he had that Rowan Morrison existed, because everybody else denied her existence up and even prior to that point till he saw her name, which is funny because they all knew this was going to happen, which is why you just know that this was a setup from the start. Like this is your first hint about it being a setup.
Absolutely.
Because the whole time.
Well, the whole time you know they're leading him on, but the whole time you think they're trying to cover something up, like her death, because they do a good job of making it seem that way. But when you hit this thing, because you know if they really wanted to cover up, they would have just removed that page. They wanted him to find out that she really existed, and they wanted him to suspect that. You know what I mean? And you know, everything he did just kind of validated what they were doing to him, which, folks, I'm not saying you should burn conservative Christian men in Wicker Man or anything like that. I don't advocate that kind of violence, but I'm just saying
though, frankly.
If you go walk in there and you start spouting shit about how other people should be living their life, that you might just end up in a Wicker Man, and one of us are going to cry for you, is all I'm saying. And also
we'll sing really bizarre songs like "Summer is coming in."
But and I also love the way that they wouldn't say dead. And when she was trying to explain why, the teacher was explaining why they didn't like the dead word, because death wasn't really a concept to them. It was a stage in, you know, their evolution, basically, where eventually you would just become one with the world, you know. And also her distinction between graveyard and churchyard. She's like, maybe not so much churchyard anymore.
Right.
But I also love how you get to the churchyard and they make it seem like, you know, once you're done with the church, that anybody would just go and just chuck out all the stuff from inside the church and just leave it in a ramble in a graveyard because we're Christian and that's what we do. And how he just like shits all over, like he knocks off all the, like, you know, sacrifices that were put there, or offerings that were put there, like fruit wise, and then decides he has to put a cross there.
Yeah.
Fuck your religion, cross.
Don't disrespect.
Again,
Well,
not
who's
saying he
already left
deserved
there.
it, however.
Yeah.
But so he decides that he needs to dig up the grave. So he goes to find Lord Summerisle to get permission to dig in the graveyard.
Which is also
And
another
that is
interesting
when
thing.
we meet
Christopher Lee.
Lee.
And I'm sorry to interject. The other interesting about that is all along they keep telling him that he had needed Lord Summerisle's permission to look at the school registry, to look at the death records, to do all this stuff.
Right.
And the whole time he's like, fuck you, fuck your lord. I am a police officer. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want.
Yep.
But at this point, he finally was like, okay, I guess if I'm going to dig up the grave, I actually do need to get permission.
That's a little different. And
Ask.
yeah.
But what's great is coming up onto Lord Summerisle's estate. They have what are supposed to be naked women, but I'm guessing that there was a censorship that was like, you cannot have fully naked women. So they were all wearing bodysuits, frolicking and jumping around a bonfire. And these are supposed to be girls, but they looked older to me. So like, this is where I'm like kind of torn about, were they being creepy pedophiles or just exploiting women in general?
I'm going to go with the latter.
Yeah.
Creepy pedophile or exploit. Yeah. But when
exploiting
Lord
in general.
Summerisle refers to him, he refers to him as youth, regenerative properties of viewing youth. And I'm like,
my other thought is maybe they're just unmarried women, which would still be considered like maidens.
That was what I thought.
That's fine.
I assumed it was either unmarried or those who were wishing to have kids, whatnot. But
right, those who are of marrying age.
Yeah.
And also you have this scene where you have pregnant women going through the apple trees, the orchard, and like kind of.
Now that is actually something
you
that
go
I've
with
heard
blessing
before.
the apple trees.
Well, that one made sense.
I like that.
That was one of the
that
ones
made sense to me.
Yeah,
I was going to say that made sense.
I think I've even actually heard of that happening, where they have like pregnant women bless the crops to be fecund.
Bertrand,
yeah.
Fecund. So I like that touch a lot. I thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah.
That was the one part. That was the one part of a lot of the paganism they were showing, which made sense. The rest of it, I was like, what are they doing?
There are things where you jump over bonfires, and I think there is one that's supposed to be that's not shit that I ever really looked into, to be honest.
Yeah, jumping. I mean,
I look at
jumping over the fires. Yes.
Yeah,
no kidding.
Yeah. I've jumped over bonfires.
Yeah,
jumping over bonfires in general is a very pagan thing to do. Whether or not it's for the end goal of trying to become fertile, that's debatable. There might be.
I would never have done it if it was.
Yeah, I was gonna say I will not jump over a bonfire to get pregnant. I'll do it just for shits.
I mean, I've done a maypole and fought people to go the opposite direction because I was like, no, none of that fertility for me. Thank you very much.
I'm just gonna go for the sex.
I was probably a little too risky one, Beltane, and afterwards myself and my now ex-husband had wandered off to have private time, which is probably not the wisest thing to do on that day, considering both of us were like, no kids.
I wouldn't have, but you do what you
got. It worked out. It's okay. You're safe.
I was out of college by that time. I was young and dumb.
There we go. But yeah, so he goes to Lord Summerisle, and Lord Summerisle is everything you want him to be and more. He's like, oh, my grandfather came to these islands.
He is so extra. I love it.
He was propagating trees that could grow in this specialized climate. And he's just going on and on. Only he doesn't use the Scottish accent, and I keep doing it.
Have fun, girl. Have fun.
So he's going on, and he's like, I know you don't understand our ways. They're not for you. But can you just stop being so judgy? That's not what he says. Those are my words, not Christopher Lee's. He's way snarkier about it.
That's kind of the sense of it, though.
Oh yeah. And he goes,
my favorite part is when Officer Howie complains about the naked women jumping over the fire. He's like, well, of course they're naked. It'd be so dangerous if they were wearing clothes. I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly, but it was along those lines.
That's close to the line. I loved that line. It was such delightful snark.
Oh, he's so snarky most. And he's playing his piano, and he's just, it's so good. It's so good, that scene. But inevitably, he's like, if it'll make you feel better, go ahead and dig up the girl.
Yeah. Right away, he actually gives permission. Almost as soon as the guy asks, he's like,
yeah,
sure. Yeah, no, you think there's foul play, you dig her up. and Officer Howie's still going about how awful this place is and how pagan it is, and
Good.
and
Dang it.
Lord Summer Isles explaining things and being patient and tolerant and snarky and and wonderful. And it's funny because Officer Howie at the end is like, "So can I dig her up or not?" And he's like, "I believe we already established that. I told you yes at the beginning of this freaking conversation. Pay attention, jackass."
Nope.
Dig it on up. So how he goes, he finds some men and they exhume the grave. And when they get into it, the coffin has a hair in it. It's a
The
rabbit.
dead hair, as in the bunny,
Dead
not
hair.
as in.
Yeah, like a bunny hair, not a like hair from head. So there's a hair in the grave, and he's like, "Do you think this is fake?" He gets real angry at everybody, but he finds the missing harvest photograph. And when he finds the missing harvest photograph, he sees that Ruin was the May Queen, and there are no crops, which means the crops failed that year. So he thinks, oh, they're going to kill, she's probably still alive, but they're going to kill her. She's going to be sacrificed, because he thinks they're that kind of people. And he's right, but he's wrong.
Yes, but no.
Yes, correct, and also very wrong. So he's like, I'm going to go to the mainland and get more police officers to come back and take down this pagan horribleness. And so he goes to a seaplane and realizes that it's not working. Someone has sabotaged his seaplane. So he ends up having to come back to the island. And Lord Summerall pretty much told him, like, hey, we're going to be having our big celebration, so you probably should leave the island. Because if you don't like anything else you've seen, you're definitely not going to like today.
Yeah. He's been warned. He's been told numerous times, this is not something you need to be looking into. You need to leave. He ignores it and continues on. Oh, we're going to have a big celebration. You're really probably going to be unhappy with it. You should probably go. He ignores it and moves on. Yeah.
So then we get to the weird hobby horse chase sequence, and also
That's
where he's searching the entire house where he's searching the entire town,
busting into people's houses. I'm a police officer, let me in.
Just busting into houses. At one point walks into the bathroom while a woman's taking a bath and checks her out. Just creepy.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, and then as he's backing away, you see like the quick look.
It was cute. Rude Officer Howie. And he's just also generally being a nuisance.
And a dick. And I love one of the little girls, well, not so little girls, but supposedly little girls, totally fucks with him. And I like, that bitch is a queen already. So he like digging through everybody's house and just being a dick and throwing things left and right. He was going into an armoire, and all of a sudden this other side of the armoire falls open and the little girl falls forward and goes face plants on the ground, totally dedicated to her moment. And he's like, and she gets up and laughs right in his face. I'm like, yes. Yes, girl.
Best part of that,
she
was just an islander. She was not a paid actress.
That makes it so much the better. Little shit.
Yeah, she was not a paid actress. She just was one of the people.
She did great.
Kids, fuck with them.
So
like when he's going to one of the houses and like two girls are wearing their little holiday masks. And he's like, take off the mask. No. And then eventually they do and whatnot. And I'm like, man, this guy he's getting a little even more obnoxious. But admittedly, the masks were creepy.
I mean,
masks. Wonderful and creepy at the same time.
Of these costumes for the celebration are creepy. Although I did appreciate having the salmon of knowledge salmon. I said salmon. The salmon of knowledge. Which is a real thing. People believe that salmon brings knowledge. That is a true myth. So there you are. So many good things. Yeah. So inevitably, he goes back to the inn. They try to put him to sleep with a hand of glory. It does not work. They do the horrible whispering sequence.
Well, they do that right before they light the hand of glory.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, he's napping, and then they whisper, shout, and wake him up.
Let's light the hand of glory.
It'll keep him asleep. We don't know how long.
I don't think they could have whispered any louder.
It's amazing.
But another thing that I had never noticed before, and I'm sure you guys did, but you know when he was doing the house check and he gets to basically the I can't think, funeral home, for lack of a better word. And he opens up a coffin and there's a body in there. She knows the body had a cut off hand,
Yes,
which
I did
is
notice that.
what they probably use for the hand of glory, because
Oh,
traditionally speaking, if you make a hand of glory, you have
Those
to use
two
a dead man's hand.
shit, you're right. I didn't even
And
think
I had
about
never
that.
picked that up until this viewing.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think about
Awesome.
that. I just kind
Awesome.
of sort of cataloged it away as dead body. Yeah.
But so he also keeps seeing the hobby horse around, and inevitably what he does eventually is he knocks the innkeeper out, who is
Actually,
playing
yeah.
pool.
And frankly, at that point when he knocks the innkeeper out, I'm like, that's pretty cool. Because frankly, the innkeeper was a smarmy motherfucker who needed to be knocked out.
He was skeezy also. He was very
Yeah.
skeezy. So he knocks him out. He takes on the appearance of the fool and he joins the parade.
Christopher Lee in drag. Yes.
Yes,
I was gonna say,
I loved that
Christopher
part.
Lee
I
as
really
like
liked
the he has like a sheath or scythe, and then he has like whatever, and he's just leading the parade.
And
I'm
a
like, I
purple
don't know what
lace
it
dress
is.
with a black long haired wig
Yeah.
and
I'm
paled out
into
face.
this so much. It's wild.
He loves
and
it.
then
You could just
Oh,
tell
yeah.
Lee is having the best time of his life.
He's chewing the scenery in that one for sure.
and there are people
yeah.
wearing just kilts, and then there are people with creepy masks like a pig and a rabbit and various other kinds of masking. And he's the fool, so he's supposed to be merrily cantering, and he's trying his hardest to merrily canter and just can't,
He
because
just
Sergeant
can't.
Howie is
To
not
be fair,
good.
though, their cantering music sounded more like a funeral dirge than a harvest parade. I mean,
Oh,
it was
It was
awful.
a dirge.
The
It was
music in
definitely
this
dirge.
film was painful almost all the way around. Not
So
gonna lie.
then they get to like a clearing, and the men who are wearing kilts have swords, and they make like a star
Star
with
of
the
David.
swords.
Mhm.
And then all the people have to prove that they're true by sticking their head up through the stars, or through the star,
Through the
and
center
then
of it, yeah.
they might cut your head off, if that's the implication, if you're not true. And so people are sticking their head up, and then a person in a rabbit costume sticks their head up, and they cut, and the rabbit's head pops off. And Howie's like, oh no, they killed her.
Oh God!
And it's some other
Because
little
he's
girl.
sure that's Rowan. He's sure
Yes.
that's Rowan because of the hair in the coffin and this hair costume. And then they cut off her head. So he thinks it's Rowan at this moment.
Yes. And then no, it's not. It's
Nor
another
was
little
the actual
girl.
person's head cut off.
Yes. It's another little girl, and she hasn't lost her head. They cut above where her head was, because she was the sacrifice at the moment. So, because they're messing with him real hard.
Mhm.
And then he sees Rowan.
Yeah.
Um,
Eventually, yeah, they do their little thing.
they do their little
sacrifice
thing
a
to
cake
go,
to
and
the
they-
ocean.
yeah,
And
they
then-
take the beer and the apples and they throw them in the ocean as a sacrifice to the ocean. And then Rowan appears, and he's like, "Oh, it's
Found.
Rowan." And so he like takes off his costume and he chases after Rowan, and he's like, "We have to get you out of here." And she's like, "Okay." And so
They're gonna kill me.
They're gonna kill me.
Here, quick,
And
we can go
so-
this way.
she's kind of leading him up through the cliffs, because of course she knows this place better than he does. And then they come out, and all of the townspeople are there.
Well, most actually at the time you only see Lord Summerisle and
The teacher.
Rowan, or not Rowan, the
Librarian,
The
innkeeper's
teacher
daughter
is
and,
there.
and the
Yeah.
teacher. Yeah.
And the teacher, the three women.
And then like the sword bearers show up on the cliff, and
I was gonna say, and then they
and
show up on the
Rowan's
cliff,
mom and
and Rowan says, "Did I do okay?" And that's when you
that's-
realize that
Then the
she's
audience,
in it.
if they hadn't
the whole
already
time.
figured out, is clued in on the fact that wait a minute.
this was the plan all along.
Dun,
They
dun,
were just dropping
dun.
breadcrumbs to lead him to this point.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Even did the temptation thing, which
You-
okay, so
Yeah,
this is what
you
I thought
hit
was
the
funny. 'Cause,
twist.
yeah, him being the virgin sacrifice was even better. So that's the whole scene where Willow, the innkeeper's daughter, is trying to seduce him through the wall while humping a door, was to test if he actually was a virgin, I guess, basically. And his excuse for not coming to her, even though he was sorely, sorely tempted, was that he was engaged. So I know it's 1973, but it's 1973. We're looking like post 1960s. So just because a person's engaged doesn't mean they never fucked. So I found that kind of funny.
True.
But for this movie, they're going with that. And also, I always had this funny thought, like every time that comes up in this movie, I just think about a scene from Low Down Dirty Shame, a really great movie, Keenan Ivory Wayans. Or one of the Ivory Wayans. I think I just confused their name. Sorry. But at any rate, there's a scene where like the villainess in the movie, she basically tries to seduce a guy that has a gun on her. And he's like, no, I know better than to trust you. And she's like, all right. And she shoots him in the head. And she goes, dumb son of a bitch. You could have had yourself some pussy. I think about that every time this dude gets sacrificed. He could have just had some pussy and he'd have been fine.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, and even in the movie, Will is like, well, I invited you. Yeah.
Could have got laid. Now you're going to burn. Just saying.
Yeah, basically the 4 requirements that they had for their God, the 4 things he needed to do were to come of his own free will,
Which he did.
become a virgin,
Which he
to
is.
come with the power of a king, which is
Authority of the police.
Yep.
yes, the glory of the police, and to come as a fool.
And he was dressed up as Punch the Fool for the parade. So
Absolutely. Also, one could argue that he was a fool the whole time because they were making a mockery of him.
Oh,
Oh,
Lord,
definitely.
definitely. Yeah.
So-
I knew about the ending of the movie before I ever watched it the first time. And much like you, Jenny, within 20 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait for this guy to go up.
so great. The whole time, I'm like, you're just so intent on being a good Christian. You could have just probably broken out the back of the fucking Wicker Man and jumped to safety and got away. But you're too busy, like, save me, God. I want to die unshriven and go to hell, please.
Oh my God, my God,
Oh,
oh God, my
hello,
God,
kitty, kitty, kitty.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's constant. It's so funny. You're like, can he just please die of smoke inhalation? I'm glad the goat above him is probably pissing on his head right now. That's all I'm saying about that.
And poop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very sad about the animals in the Wicker Man, I'll
Yes.
tell you.
Yes,
for
I
sure.
think that sucks.
But I also think the other funny thing is Lord Summerowl, before they stick him into the Wicker Man, says, you should be happy you get to die as a martyr. I'm
Oh,
like,
snap.
It's like,
there you go.
oh, that is just such a lie. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
But he's such like the way he dies is so ignoble. I mean, like, oh my God, he just whines. He barely puts up a fight. Like, and it's just like shouting Christianity at them, like that's gonna make them
Yeah.
stop.
That's not
Like-
gonna. These people
Like,
have already
God,
decided what
think
they
of what
do.
you're
and
doing
they-
in God's name. They're like, well, we're actually not doing it in God's name, but
Yeah.
okay.
Which one?
Our God says to do this. Meh.
Specifically requested it for a good harvest. So get your ass in the wicker. And I love how the big man who was in the hobby horse just kind of like fireman carries him up the ladder. It's like,
Yep.
tonk, nink, light it up. Yeah. It's payoff at the end was nice. I like that he dies. It's
I was
just
gonna
like
say,
I
that
keep
part is
thinking-
fun. It's also interesting that they like you can hear the people singing for the first little bit, and then at some point it becomes just the noise of him screaming and the animals making little noises and fire. And you can't hear the voices singing anymore or anything like that. It's very quiet, which is really an interesting way to do it and kind of creepy. That's the scariest
nice
part of
piece
the
of-
entire film.
That's a nice piece of sound design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the creepiest part of the entire film, is right at that moment when he's like, oh my God, my God. And
that?
then like burning.
burning.
He's
Yeah.
looking like-
So the cat's like, yes, I like the burning too. Let me give you kisses for that. Good burning. But yeah, so like I said, I don't like this movie, but it's painful yet enjoyable to watch on some level. Like there is the edifying ending. And I like this statement it makes about colonizing and Christianity and how it's just like slamming over whatever's going on there and trying to like push on to other people what it believes. I love the counter statement to that word. Keep fucking around. Yeah. You're gonna burn.
I believe the
so
phrase
I
is fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
He
So
found out.
I recommend watching it only for that. Just be prepared to have to like I would say make a drinking game out of it. Like anytime he says God or I am a police officer, drink. You might be like passed out before you get to
I
the
was
end.
gonna
though,
say
so
you're gonna
pace
be.
You might
Judge
want to
before you
moderate
before.
it somehow because nobody wants to have alcohol poisoning because he says it's a lot.
I would say to drink whenever you see boobs, but again, you'll die.
You might die. Like you might want to do like every third boob or every third god or every third I am a police officer, just pace it a little because, or you have to pass a drink around or something. I don't know.
Pace yourself. Yeah.
Their drink every time you see him being like led by his nose to a clue. Again, though, pace yourself
Mhm.
because you may die, but it might make it a more enjoyable watch.
Yeah,
Another
well,
thing to point out. Go ahead.
any of the, I was just gonna say, a lot of the movie is like, oh Lord, dragging and painful. But any of the scenes with Christopher Lee, I highly recommend.
Oh yeah. There could be just like a Christopher Lee as Lord Summer Isle edit, and it would be entertaining as fuck because he clearly, again, as we've been saying, he is having a great fucking time making this movie. Like you could just tell he's enjoying every second of it. He is liking not having to be the dark evil vampire and just being like the fun evil lord, I guess.
Mhm.
Just, he's having a blast playing the piano, being snarky, dancing around in drag. He's loving it. Like you can clearly see he's loving it.
I don't think that he's evil at all. He's just
No,
someone who celebrates a
No.
relationship.
I'm
and
going
his
evil from the
relationship
police
happens to
officer's
be-
perspective, but yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. He's not evil.
He's not evil.
So
He's just
murder is bad, people. Murder is bad. Even if it's a sacrificial murder, it's bad.
fine. Murder is bad. I am contractually obligated to tell you that murder is bad, even when they're being horrible Christians.
We must put this in a disclaimer.
Yes.
Disclaimer.
We do
that
not
you
advocate
go out and
burning
sacrificing
men as
people.
sacrifices, especially not conservative Christian men. They do not, and I repeat, do not make better sacrifices, and your harvest will not, I repeat, will not improve through burning them.
No matter how much you want to.
This has been our disclaimer.
Yeah.
I think we're
Anyways.
covered. I think we're covered on legalistic now.
Yeah. So, but on a counter to this, though, where Christopher Lee is having a great time, Britt Eklund did not
Was
enjoy
not
making
having
this
a good
movie at
time.
all.
Yeah.
And to be fair to her, like I expect a lot of the reason why is because basically she's just a pretty face in the movie because all her dialogue, all the singing is dubbed in over her. So she's just walking around looking pretty, which she looks phenomenal, but I'm sure that's not what she wanted out of life.
Although I read another person who was the sound director, and he said, I didn't dub anything but her singing. So if someone did it, it wasn't me.
It, like I said, when I looked it up, it said that her dialogue was dubbed as well. So it might be a lie. It's the internet.
I
There's
only-
conflicting
She said
things,
it
but
was. She said it was, but the guy who did the sound said he didn't dub it.
well, I saw another source. It didn't say she said it was. It just said that her. So
The only
again,
stuff I
you
found
keep-
only mentioned the singing. I didn't do a huge search though.
it was a
so.
trivia article I read. So again,
Yeah.
could be anything. I don't know. I'm just saying that there's
I mean, it
Apparently-
goes into the whole like 3 people claim to be her butt.
yeah. Though we do know it was not in fact her butt in that case. So
Right.
that
We
one
know
we
it was not
definitively
her
know
butt.
not it's not
She
her
knows
butt.
that.
We just don't know
Everybody
whose
knows
it
wasn't
is.
her butt.
Yeah, I mean, and from the point of view of an actor, that must really rankle, because that's a part of your performance is the voice part.
Mhm.
Because like I know, for example, a dude who did the body acting for Darth Vader,
Right.
he was really
Yeah,
unhappy
he did not
about
know that they were going to use a different voice.
So for somebody who's trying to get their presence out there, yeah.
I mean, hell, even famous actresses.
And I can understand dubbing the singing because not just because you can act does not necessarily mean you have a good singing voice. George Clooney, for example, in what was
Brother,
it?
Where Art Thou?
Thank you. I could see the DVD cover. In Oh Brother Where Art Thou, his character is supposed to be singing at some points, and the man cannot. Like they tried, and they're like, "We'll find a voice for you."
Yeah.
But if they did indeed dub over the voice, that's balls.
So fun fact, Apparently, the goat actually did pee on them. It says it was reported that the crew set the giant on fire and filmed the final scene from below. A goat in one of the man's compartments above peed on them. Hardy also stressed that the fire was kept under control, was put out soon afterwards, and that no animals were harmed while filming the scene. I'm still going to say that you don't set fire with animals that close. That was some
No.
They
shitty.
wouldn't
No,
do that
you
now. They would never do that now.
No.
No, and so they totally deserve to get pissed on, to say the least.
Yeah, seriously. We would have believed you that there were animals in there. You didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
At all. Apparently, though, Sergeant Howie, Edward Woodward, right? The actor's name?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, Edward Woodward.
Was the Equalizer, correct? In the original Equalizer series?
Yep.
Yes, he
By
was.
the way.
Yep.
So if he looks vaguely familiar to you, that is why. He's actually a very prolific actor, but that's like
He
where
was
I came
cast
from.
for it because they saw the Wicker Man.
Seriously, that's awesome.
But it says the stricken look on his face during the sacrifice was because he hadn't actually seen the Wicker Man, that the actual structure, until that scene. So he actually was like totally fucking shocked by seeing the thing.
God, God,
that's really cool. And it said he had no time to learn his lines and had to read them off of giant letters on bed sheets hung from nearby cliffs. Which I give him credit, because he doesn't do it. I'm like, it sounds like it was consistent with his character's dialogue throughout the movie. Like, he doesn't seem like he's reading. He seems like he's frantically praying, which is what he is doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. There's actually, so to your point about the negative, it says the film's original negative may lie under the M3 highway in England.
Yes.
As we mentioned, Rod Stewart was trying to get the movie destroyed. So this little trivia thing says Stewart's threats to destroy the footage were unnecessary. EMI executives foisting off Hardy's request for the original footage in 1976 eventually told him that the 368 canisters of film he sought had been used as filler in construction of Britain's M3 highway, even leading producer Peter Snell to the landfill and pointing to a trove of cans at the bottom of a hole to underscore the point.
Oh, wow.
That's But yeah, and apparently there are multiple versions of the film. There was a 99-minute version, an 87-minute version, a 95-minute version.
Yeah.
And there's a Hardy's final cut that came out in 2013.
Yeah, and the final cut is still not the version that Christopher Lee wanted to see come out, because he actually had a couple of like big, like dramatic monologues that were cut for time.
I'm kind of sad about that.
Right?
I am, but I'm also wondering if it would have ruined it. You know what I mean? Like, because he was so fun at this, that if he was doing dramatic monologues, it might have kind of taken it too far. You know what I mean?
That's possible. That's possible.
But I still would have watched it because Christopher Lee.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's why I watched it, partly because I was like, no, Christopher Lee, and I'd heard it mentioned so many times.
Yeah,
which is what led me to watch it originally.
It's one of those that a lot of like pagan people would be like, yeah, we watch it every May Day, and I'm like, I mean, I see it. It's fun.
And painful. Again, just painful. And it just feels like the way they shot the naked women, it really feels exploitive as opposed to open one. I
mean, it was the 70s. I guarantee you it was exploitative.
Yeah, so I don't like that aspect of it. I would have, preferred something less exploitive, but again, 70s and men with the camera, so there you go.
Yep. I mean, think of a lot of the horror movies that were coming out of England at that point in time. It was like, when in doubt, throw some titties in there.
Right.
It's like, you're doing a vampire film? Make it lesbian vampires. Whatever.
Yeah. Or it's always going to be a male vampire exploiting women.
Yep.
What they believed of being like pagan was like a whole lot of nudity. And I mean, you can have some nudity. That's what you want. You can.
Yeah, but sky cloud's a thing, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And honestly, most pagan things where sky cloud is an option is mostly men running around naked, to be honest. There are naked women, but a lot of men, when they have that chance, they're just dicks hanging over food. That's their favorite thing.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, men, please keep your dicks away from the food.
Away from the food.
Use some sense. For most of you, it ain't that hard. Sorry. Anyway, PSA
Yeah,
from
and it's
your
not.
pagan women.
I was gonna say from pagan women.
Dicks away from the food.
Takes away from food.
I think that's a fair general PSA.
All right. I think we probably kicked this one to death, but
I was gonna say. As far
final
as it
thoughts,
goes-
anyone?
Yeah.
yeah, final thoughts.
Definitely not a good movie. Worth it to watch Christopher Lee, and finally, and it's entertaining. Finally, to see the obnoxious bastard burn at the end. Yeah, you're kind of you're rooting for the heathens at that point in time. I know I was.
I was rooting for them the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, not really scary, in my opinion. Has horror elements, obviously, is meant to be a horror. I think it's funny as fuck and painful at the same time.
If you can watch it for free, there you
Do
go.
it. But it payoff's good. The payoff is good. It is so edifying to
Yeah.
watch him burn.
Oh, yeah.
Great snark. Excellent Christopher Lee.
Oh,
Ah.
excellent, Christopher Lee.
He was lovely in it.
I will be the minority and say that I love this film. I can't help it. I do. And there are lots of people who do. It has an 88% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. People love this film. So, I mean, it is what it is. You either like it or you hate it. I personally just happen to love it. It's a favorite. And I am a folkie. Like, I love folk music. It's kind of what I do, like Renaissance fairy type music. And this is absolutely Renaissance fairy type music. And it gets me going. I've been singing the songs for it for 2 solid weeks. So,
Your poor
Nice.
husband.
luckily mostly in my head, although I will sing at him Willow's song, which is the song she sings when she's seducing him, but I don't know the words, so I just do like little weird lulu-looing at him.
He probably
hump-
loves that.
Do you hump the door when you sing it to him?
I don't, because that's weird.
Try to
I
claw
just-
your way up the walls.
Yeah, no, I don't do that because that's wild. But I do sing the little songs because they're pretty fun. But again, I will be the minority and say that I love it and I watch it like multiple times a year. It's a problem that I have with The Wicker Man.
I watch
is
it every now and then.
One of my favorite films.
When I feel like the world is wrong and I want to see it righted, I'll watch The Wicker Man for the burning of the
Burning of a
idiot at the
Christian.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conservative dude. Yeah.
Ugh.
Also, for the fuck the police vibes.
Yeah.
Conservative wanker.
Down with the authority.
Oh.
So I guess with that, down with the authority.
Down with the authority. This has been Ghost Girls. Go schools. I know how it works. Girls go schools. I'm Betsy.
Rebecca.
Jenny.
Bye.
Have a good night, folks.
You have been listening to the Girls Go Schools podcast. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Girls Go Schools podcast, on Twitter at Girls Ghost Pod. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Girls Go Schools podcast, and find our podcast on your favorite podcatcher.